All right, I'm starting a little bit early here. Give a little bit of context to this live stream. So I got messages from 100,000 people about the heated exchange between Chael and Ariel over Francis Ngannou, and they're like, obviously you have to cover this, and I was like, yes, I do. So I looked all over the internet looking for someone who had made an edited like summarization of the back and forth, and I couldn't find one. So the only thing I could find is the entire thing. And thus I decided, instead of making a video about it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch the entire thing live, and I'm going to pause it and give you my commentary on who I think is right, who I think is wrong, etc. Because so I started watching it, and I watched ballpark 30 seconds. And it was all, I hadn't even seen, Ariel wasn't even on the screen yet. The point that Chael made, I was like, okay, yeah, he said like, I mean, obviously, look, I realize that the thumbnail makes it look like I'm like biased, like it's obviously going to come off like I'm biased. Everybody knows Chael's my dude, but oh, really? Well, Danny, now you could sit in timeout, you little crybaby ass. Oh, I can't swear yet. Hasn't been long enough. Anyway, so it looks like I'm going to be biased, but I'm not. I'm going to run through this thing, and if whoever makes good points, I'm going to say what the good point was. Now, everything Chael said was 100% accurate when he was talking thus far. We're going to let people get on really quick, and then we're going to start. We're just going to start. That's what we're going to do in about 2 minutes. That's why I started early. Let everybody. What's up, Gato? How are you, dude? Or Gato? You guys know what that means? It means cat 666, as far as I understand it. This is dude. If it's Chael's first loss, I mean he's off to a real good start from what I saw. The point he made was like definitely 100% accurate. And honestly, like I said, well, I don't know if I've said it in this video. I definitely haven't. But I said it in the videos, before this. Everybody who was like, who is, claiming a victory, they're like, yes, we were the ones saying yada, yada. I mean, I assume that people are aware of, where their biases lean one way or the other, and I would just say going into this, Chael, like I can't think of a video that he did that was positive towards what Francis was doing going into this. And I could think of lots of things Ariel said that were positive going into this. However, we all know why Ariel's doing that. I mean, obviously, I don't blame him for that. If I were in Ariel's position and Dana had made an enemy of me publicly, yeah, I would be rooting for Dana to fall on his face all the time, figuratively and actually. But anyway, so we're going to start in 3. Oh, we're at go time. All right, so we're going to rock and roll. And I mean, listen, if people are telling me that Chael gets owned, then we'll see, right? We will find out. So Daniel, thank you very much. You thought Sonnen got owned? We'll see. Because like I said, what I watched so far, Chael was making very good points. But like I said, I literally watched 2 minutes. Like I watched 2 minutes of this so far. So let's get into it right now.
This was an incredibly big surprise. Like this was an incredible performance by Francis.
Incredible theater, and he is actually going to do it. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, here's Chael back in July when the fight was announced, celebrating how great this was and putting his reputation on the line, saying that Francis is going to shock the world in this mega event. Take a look at this.
Okay, so just this. Okay,
I will stand by. This is the most lopsided sporting event.
True,
right? You're taking. Just so you guys understand, you're taking LeBron, Colby. Rest his soul. You're taking the rest of the team. You're taking Phil Jackson. You're taking the great. You're taking the Lakers. They're great. And you're putting them against Manning and the Patriots, but you're doing it in football rules. That's exactly what you're doing here. That is ridiculous from a competitive standpoint.
How is that incorrect? At the time, I mean, it's not exact one-to-one basketball to football. I will give you guys a better metaphor that Chael sent me personally earlier in the day when he and I were talking about the fight. He said this is a Globetrotters versus the, whatever that they, whoever they set up for, generally, you know what I mean? Like, which is a perfect metaphor for what it was going in. And anyway, let's continue. He's right.
That is ridiculous.
To
the point that what I just laid out for you has never even been attempted. It's ridiculous. Well, that's what's happening here. When I call it lopsided, that is exactly what's happening.
Okay, so if Ariel would admit he had a grudge, he just want. Well, listen, dude. If that's what we're, if Ariel's trying to pretend like all his opinion was objective, it had nothing to do with his feelings toward the UFC, that's dumb. Of course it did. Like, who in Ariel's position would not have a grudge, and who in Ariel's position would not try to use their influential platform to guide it in a direction where he can actually make something hurt the UFC? Okay. Like, this is just going to be, like, my takes on this are going to be objective. I promise you. I realize Chael's my boy. You guys all know that. But nonetheless, like, I'm just saying, of course, Ariel is going to use his platform to try to jam up the UFC. If he won't admit that, that's stupid. You know what I mean? I would do the same thing if I was in his position. Ariel has a much more influential platform than me. If there was someone in the mix that had in my opinion, genuinely wronged me, and I suddenly had the ability to kick them in the balls, I would do it for sure. For 100% sure. But if he's acting like this is just like that didn't affect his opinion, dumb. Okay, let's continue. Sorry.
Okay, I have to apologize. I think I had the wrong clip there. That's you actually shitting on the event and the fight. So maybe I got bad intel.
Oh, so this whole thing. So I actually hadn't seen that. I saw from like minute 2 and where are we at? I saw from like right after he stops talking to like 3:30, and then I paused it. But so Ariel, this whole thing is a setup, right? So this whole thing is a setup. Ariel took all the clips of Chael shitting on the event, and he compiled them so he could confront Chael with them in this scene. By the way, Ariel and Chael are friends. I'm sure this is genuine, but like, if I say, friendship is over in my thumbnail, I mean, like, not really, not really. Okay, so Chael was taking personal shots at Ariel. Ariel held his own. Chael has personal beef with Francis and was super biased. If Chael has personal beef with Francis, I don't know about it. And I know Chael and I know Francis' manager. So if that's true, I don't know about it. Darth Vader Ariel is reaching for those sour grapes. Yeah. Okay. I don't want to like.
Here you go. Here's the crow, Chael. Here's the crow. I wanted to feed it to you.
Oh, you want to
feed it to the camera right here. The crow, if you'd like to eat it. Here it is, Chael. Eating the crow from Saturday. Here it is. Open big, Chael.
Oh, he's trying not to laugh.
Here it comes. The plane. There it is.
There he is.
Chael. Come on, Chael. We shocked the world.
Well,
please apologize.
Ariel.
Apologize.
Who's we?
Ariel, there will be no apology. You must understand. Let's tell the story the way that it happened. This was an incredibly big surprise.
This was where I started.
Incredible.
I've seen this answer, and this is why I paused it, because I'm like, Chael got owned. Everything he said here is 100% accurate.
Performance by Francis. And if I was to put myself in his shoes, or just other things that I've observed, while you talk about you've got thick skin or ice running through your veins, other people can't affect you. You're a human being. Sure that they could get in. I mean, there was nobody that believed that Francis could do well, but that wasn't a joke. I mean, that was Tyson Fury himself. That was John Fury himself. They weren't attempting to hype or build a fight. This was one of those situations where, and I do maintain, this was the biggest mismatched sporting event of my lifetime. But Ariel, that's what made this one of the great sporting events of my lifetime.
Exactly. Every single thing that he said so far is 100% accurate.
As I hear people talk about it and come out the backside, there is always a confusion. There's a confusion sometimes where somebody's talking about the competition itself, or they're talking about the spectacle and the night of business, and that is a split decision. I've
100% accurate.
never personally lived through a sporting event. I've heard about it. I heard the Miracle on Ice was like this, but I didn't live through it, where the buzz and the excitement, the celebration, appreciation, the headlines are more bountiful about the event after the event. And I bring that to you because, and your viewers know this to be true, though they will deny it today, they were not on Friday night having a hard time sleeping with excitement.
Fact. I was, but I have a personal relationship-based investment in the Francis Ngannou story, where anything Francis does, I'm going to be, but the polls were crystal clear. I took a screenshot that I'm going to show you guys right now. I just tweeted it, but since none of you guys follow me on Twitter, because I don't know why, but you guys could make that change right now if you love me, because I love you guys. I love every one of you. But look at this is from today. Who would you rather see Tyson Fury box next? 81% said Francis Ngannou, 19% said John Jones today. Do you have any idea what that answer would have been on Thursday? It would have been 94% John Jones, me plus 6% saying Francis, and half of those would have been trolls.
They did not wake up early high on life because they were thrilled for a sporting event. They were not invited between 3 different parties where people were having them over. They were not at the water cooler the night before and trading around tickets. This, from a business standpoint and the pay-per-view numbers, it bombed. But it did what people thought that it would do. It wasn't expected to be a great event. It turned out to be wildly competitive, and it was incredible. That's the accurate story.
Yes.
And if you want to heap praise on Francis and wonder if I'll contribute, of course I do. I was blown away. I was blown away by it.
Can you say now, though, in retrospect, and I know hindsight is 2020, that the decision to leave the UFC, the decision to sign with PFL, who allowed him to fight in boxing, to go after the Tyson Fury fight, to have this fight where he had it, on the night that he had it, all these things over the past year that so many people, including yourself, criticized him heavily for, can you now admit that he was right and everyone else was wrong?
No. But if he said he was, I would. If he came in and said, hey, Ariel, in this amount of time that I've set out, which was almost 2 years, I mean, it was 3 months shy of 2 years, so a year and 9 months. In that amount of time, statistically speaking, I would have had 4 fights within the UFC. Shave one off, I would have had 5 fights. Let's call it 4 with my new participation since I was champion. If I was to look at the number in terms of dollars, that would have been larger than what I got against Fury. It's one of those things. But if he...
Okay, that's true, but I will definitely push back on this, which is only that. So let's just look at it like this. So I assume Chael is going to say he would have made more money if he would have re-signed with the UFC. I mean, let's give him the most money. If he would have re-signed the contract that he was offered before the Stipe fight, let's say he would have made, I don't know, without getting, it depends on at what point he would have re-signed. Let's say he would have made $6 million for the Stipe fight, high end. Let's call it $5 million. And then let's say he would have made $5 million for the Gone fight in January. That's 10. He made between 11 and 12 for the Fury fight. So let's say that they're a wash right there. Then he now has so then let's say they would have done the John Jones fight. So he would have made another, call it 8 to 10 million right there. Bottom line, that would have been, let's say 20, let's be super generous and say that would have been 20 million between those 3 fights. Here, he made 11 or 12 for this fight. He got a $4 million signing bonus from PFL with 2 $8 million guaranteed fights, which is 20 million. So that's 20 over here guaranteed. Over here, he would have had 20, and you got 20 plus the 11. So you'd have 31 over here. And with UFC, if he loses any of those fights, it goes way down. And also, there's also the factor that if you're going to talk numbers, you can't discount the fact that going forward, what's his value now and what's his ability to generate his own new offers, or negotiate his own new offers. As soon as he signs with the UFC, the second he signs that deal, he was going to be locked in for the rest of his career. And let's say making on the high end, I don't know, $7 million a fight, something like that on average, high side. Now, because he gambled on himself and he won so big on Saturday that not only does the money end up coming out ahead on the Francis side, just I mean, you have to include the guaranteed money on the PFL side, but now with boxing, he's a free agent who just shook up the world. And so his next fight is going to be astronomical. Astronomical. Assuming he doesn't do this idiotic thing that I saw Bisping talking about that was on Twitter, which is turn around and fight in Saudi Arabia again on December 23rd. I don't even want to get sidetracked with that because I'm going to do a whole video on that. But I looked at it. That would be the stupidest thing ever. They said that he might take the Fury and Usyk headline spot December 23rd and fight either Joseph Parker or Zhilei Zhang. Dude, if he does that, take every good decision that he's made from the beginning of time to now and just shoot himself in the foot, because the only way that that ends up being a positive thing is if he knocks one of those guys out in the first, second round. He's putting everything on the line to fight anyway. Okay, so let's continue. Oh, let me get caught up really quick. Chael shilling hardcore for Dana and the UFC on this one. He's hating on Ngannou. I actually agreed with Ariel on this one. Well, I don't know what Ariel, like, what's Ariel's point though? I mean, I don't think there's, if you're talking about the value that he has brand wise right now, plus the money that he had already guaranteed himself, it's a wash. Francis made the right decision. But the risk that he had to take to get into that position, if you are evaluating that before you knew the outcome, my opinion, if I had no emotional or relationship connection to this, the risk profile was unreasonable. But Francis bet on himself every single way, and he won. That's why he deserves the spoils now. But in my opinion, that's why it's a complicated thing to answer. It's like, yes, of course he made the right decision as of now. But the risk profile across the way, you could call it insanity what he did. Bordering on insanity, in my opinion. But he was right because he won every single time, which is why it's so incredible what he did.
He came out and said, I don't care about the money. It was about competition. It was about proving something and living a dream. Then I would fully listen to him.
He did say that.
He did say that.
Respect somebody.
He did say that. It was about the
respect. I haven't heard him say it.
If he
came
100%, he said that. 100%. He said the whole reason he wouldn't sign with the UFC was because they wouldn't guarantee him the right to box. It was all about boxing. For 100% sure. That is the main reason. If they would have offered him, if they would have given him contractual certainty that he would get to try boxing, and they would have taken the extensions out of his contract where, he just didn't want any ways for them to extend the contract in ways where he couldn't have seen it coming, where he couldn't have planned. He felt the extensions were very dishonest. I mean, in all honesty, they were written in the contract. If he would have had an attorney go through them with it, he would have known. But when he signed his previous contract, he felt like all the extensions, champ clause, etc., was not fair. It's his own responsibility to know those, but he didn't want them in the new contract. And the UFC has those same extensions in literally everyone's contracts. Luckily, he got a sunset clause, which is how he got out of the contract, but let's continue.
Matt has said that it was about competition, which so rare times it is in our sport, sadly. I would love that. I will always put a competitor first, but I'm only pushing back on you for one reason, Ariel, and it's not to put a mirror in front of myself or my resistance to do so. The way that you're speaking is putting out a tone that if other fighters hear, I can do this to get to that. Look, this was a real rare thing. First off,
that's a fact. That's what I was saying in my video, was that, one of the main reasons that UFC has fought so hard against this is because they don't want other fighters to try to get to the end of their contract so they can try to follow what Francis did. And I was like, I don't think many people are ever going to do it again because they have to turn down too much money with too much risk associated with it. Only a fucking crazy person would have done what Francis did. And it turns out he was crazy in the right way, where he believed in himself all the way, and he turned out to be right. I don't think anyone else is going to do the same thing.
It was not a great night of business. And second off, you had an entity, not a promoter, not a district, nothing unique with our sport. You had an entity who going into it was willing to lose. So it's a unique spot where did everything get played out and he pulled something off? I would not say anything negative.
Is it genuinely a friendship over thing? No. I mean, I don't think so. It's not like one of them, was like, I hate that guy. Like, no.
About Francis or what he did.
And I hadn't even seen this. I just heard that they got in a fight. So it's a common sense, screenshot. Or
I'm part of the celebration party. But your message that this was a financial win, they're going to do it again. Just look, come on, man. You're not right.
No, well, financial win for who? For Francis, yes. Let's say he made in the 10 to 20 million range, right? As has been reported. His last fight was 600K.
No. Well, hold on.
Let's say.
Hold on. Time out. No, you just lied. You just lied.
I did not.
There's nobody. You lied. Stop. There's nobody that is. You just pulled me up on screen, which was the internet. Pull that up. There's nobody, including a terrible dirt sheet, that has said 10 to 20 million.
Yeah.
Not to mention how
that is a factually accurate statement that is incredibly misleading. Okay. That's like saying that, listen, man, the UFC offered him somewhere between 5 and 75 million. I mean, it's a huge offer. It was between 5 and 75 million. It's like, yeah, but like how close to which side, right? 10 to 20. I don't know the exact number. I know that it is significantly closer to 10 than 20, to where even bringing the number 20 in borders on dishonest, because it's definitely not even remotely close. That's, you're talking between 10 and 13.
How awful would they be? I mean, that's a vast prediction. That's 10 to 20 million is a 100% gap. 1 million to 1.5 is what a professional would do. And Ariel, in all fairness, he got $10 million. He's always said $10 million. No one's predicted 20 million. The pay-per-view bomb. Don't come out and lie. 10 million is a beautiful number. Tell the truth.
First of all, how do you know the pay-per-view bombed? A, who's reporting that? How do you know?
That I'm curious about also, but I'm sure he's right.
Ariel, what do you mean? How do I know?
And exactly.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? How do I know about the 10 to 20 million? I'll play that same game too. You think I'm pulling shit out of my hat?
No.
Nope. Well, if anybody knows, believe me, I know 10 to 20, that's just not accurate. Like, and they've said what's been reported publicly is what's true. The pay-per-view numbers, I had a conversation about this today. The only people who would know about there are people who know about the pay-per-view numbers. Never mind. There definitely are people. There are people who know about the pay-per-view numbers. That's all I'm saying. And there just are. Not a lot of people, but there are people who, it's not impossible. Chael knows exactly at least what the initial number is. Like, it's weird. Pay-per-view reporting is super fucking weird. Like, they don't know what the real numbers are for a while, but there are people who know.
No. It's not a matter of that.
It is a matter of that. Yes, it is.
You said, no, it's not. Your words are what I'm challenging. You're the one that lied. And I said to you, and I'm quoting you. You said it's been reported.
10 to 20 mil is what he made. Right. Okay, but so let's say we knew for 100% sure, now we know what the pay-per-view numbers, let's say we knew for sure that he made 10.9 million. Is that a reasonable thing to say he makes 10 to 20 million when you're trying to position an argument about whether or not the financial upside in this fight was a good decision, bad decision? And I'm not talking about whether or not it is, just talking about how you position it. If you knew that he made 10.9 million, would saying that he made 10 to 20 million be a reasonable way to present that information? And in this case, when you're talking about this fight, trust me, I know more than Ariel for 100% sure.
Yeah,
you
on
could
the
bring
show.
up dog crap. You could bring up dog crap off the internet. I'll accept it. Pull it up. It's not been reported.
On this
you
show.
Made that up, or you misspoke.
On this
you
show,
You said those
10
words.
to 20 million on this show. Now I'm asking you.
Ariel,
what? Am I not a source? Can I not be a source?
It's been reported
on this
you
show.
Said it's been reported. By who?
Okay, Chael should have just been like, hey, so if you had to bet your life on it, did he make over 12.5? It's just like, if Ariel knows the numbers, then he's being intentionally dishonest. If he doesn't, then he's just framing it in a way that supports his position.
Me, the greatest of all time.
Oh,
what are you talking about? I got
10
13.
to 20 million.
Yes.
You're like one of those weirdos that tell us dinosaurs lived between 10 million and 100 million years ago. You can't give yourself a gap of 100%.
Well, it depends on the pay-per-view. It depends on the pay-per-view.
Let me play the same game, and let me call myself breaking news. Let me play the same game. Francis made between no money and infinite money Fighting Fury.
What are you talking
Oh,
about?
Chael, you should be reporter of the year.
I have 13 trophies that say I'm the best reporter in this game. And so let me ask you, the reason why it's 10 to 20,
between 10 and 20 million
because of the pay-per-view cut. The pay-per-view cut. And that's why I'm asking you about the pay-per-view numbers that you say they bombed. If they did bomb, then it's 11. If they didn't bomb, maybe it's 15. So then tell me, I gave you my source. Me. Now you tell me your source.
No, I called you out and you got caught lying.
I didn't get caught.
Just happened.
Who's your source on the pay-per-view?
You got caught lying.
Who's your source on the pay-per-view?
Secondly, Mr. Liar, for that to be a massive win, you know he got 10 million to show, and you know that full well. So you're discussing he could have got another 10 million in bonus point. I'm on Francis's side. I don't like how you're painting this picture.
Pay-per-view.
I'm attacking you saying things that aren't true. You're saying that there's up to a $10 million bonus.
Pay-per-view points.
That's not correct,
pay-per-view points.
That's not correct. Just because you know he's getting a piece of the pay-per-view doesn't mean you know how much of the pay-per-view he is entitled to. If he is entitled to, I don't know, call it $1.50 per buy, is there any way that he's going to get to 20 million if his base is 10? Of course not.
Ariel,
Jesus Christ.
Ariel, I'll make a point here as somebody in this space that's made money in this space. So allow me to at least tell you this before you make things up. You're telling your audience that there was a potential 10, anywhere in between, potential 10 million in pay-per-view points. The size of that pay-per-view era would be record-setting. And let me just tell you something. History matters. There's not a pay-per-view, whether it was wrestling, whether it was motocross, whether it was a concert, whether it was fighting. There's not a pay-per-view in history that is broken into the top 10, which this would have to do, that comes on at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. In all fairness,
someone just say
I worked
in the
for
chat.
the company that put this out. I plan to watch the fight. I thought it was coming on at 7 p.m., like a regular time. I was in a text message with Kevin Iole on unrelated matters when he told me I got to go. The fight's coming on.
No,
I mean, don't pretend.
In a million years, why would a fight in Saudi Arabia happen at 7 p.m. Pacific time? What are you talking about?
Do you know where Abu Dhabi is?
Yes, I'm aware of where Abu Dhabi is. Yes.
Did you watch Volkanovski versus Islam a week before?
Yes, also happened in the middle of the day.
If this is really you, text me so I know.
Nobody knows. See, that's the problem.
It happened at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. What are you talking about? You're talking.
I'm very happy for that financial win, but it's important that you understand the biggest lie that I lived through, right? I hear the term fake news in 2016. I didn't believe that was true. I thought that was just something you say. Mayweather McGregor, where I stood on the floor of the arena and was instructed to tell the world it was sold out, and I could look, and there was thousands.
Yes, I saw that too.
That's insane that didn't sell out, by the way. They must have been, I mean, Jesus. If I knew that and the tickets were even moderately affordable in the worst financial year of my entire life, I would have broke the bet. Jesus, I bet enough on that stupid fucking fight that I could have just bought tickets if that's true.
Well, but I bring it to you because those two wanted to rematch. Nobody wanted the rematch. And so it's one of these situations where when you talk about if you're coming from a competitive standpoint, I will jump in and celebrate. It was incredible, Ariel. I would love to have been in those shoes and to have that kind of a celebratory moment. If you're talking about from a business standpoint, for you to come out and pretend that just in bonus money, a guy got handed to, I mean, come on, Ariel.
Okay, so bottom line, this is, like I said, this is a number that I know for 100% sure. Chael is right. Ariel is wrong. Ariel's not wrong in how he's framing it, but he's wrong because he's saying 10 to 20 million. I don't know if he knows I don't have any idea if Ariel is aware of what the actual comp structure is or if he's just making things up, but I do. And so I'm saying if a guy can max out at 12, is it reasonable to say 10 to 20? Then no. So that one I can just solve.
It's so funny how you're spinning this because even if it is 10 million, even if the pay-per-view truly did bomb and it is 10 million, that's still what? 15x.
If the pay-per-view did max numbers, it was not going to be more than 12. That's the point. Just because you know a guy has back end on a pay-per-view doesn't mean you know how much the guy gets paid per buy.
X what he made in his last UFC fight. And then here's the best part. People like you are saying, but it's not as much as what he would have made in the 3 fights prior. Of course, ignoring the fact that he tore his ACL and couldn't fight. Fine. What do you think he's going to make in his next fight, Chael? You think he'll make 10 to 20?
What? Oh, I guess that actually is accurate.
Million for the next one?
He fought with a torn MCL technically against Cyril Gane.
Or will it maybe be 30 to 40 million for his next one? What do you think he's going to make? Like, how can you continue? I saw you talk to MMA Junkie on Monday. You said he still fumbled the bag. Is that true? That was a misquote.
It's very hard.
It's a misquote,
It's very
right?
hard, Ariel. I don't think that you're this dumb. I think you're making TV.
Nah.
But it gets my sweat going. No, you're going to let me talk. When you come out and say stupid and reckless things, and you have people that are relying on you, you're going to let me talk. So you came out and you want to make believe the 10 million. My problem with you saying that he made more in this than he made in all of his UFC fights, my problem is that you use the word made. If you were to be honest and you were to say he got, I'm with you. When it's a loss, right? When it's charity or somebody gives it away, it's very difficult to say that you made it. I share that with you because you're asking me about his next fight. Why would you have that conversation?
Okay, if he would have taken the deal that UFC offered him prior to Stipe, as far as I understand it, he would have made close to the same amount of money for that fight gone. And for sure, he was going to make much more in the John Jones fight, which is up to debate on whether or not. So you're just talking about money that has gone into Francis' pocket. It's very close. The PFL bonus, signing bonus, puts him over the top on this side. But if he would have stayed at UFC, he would have done the John Jones fight when John Jones fought Cyril Gane. If we're removing injuries out of the conversation, because I don't think that, like, that doesn't seem like a reasonable thing to include in the decision criteria. Is like, okay, well, he got injured. Okay, but that doesn't matter because you're not going to make any business decisions based on an injury. You're either going to make the decision based on this, that, or the other. So the PFL money that he took, which, as I understand it, is around a $4 million signing bonus. He owes them two fights, $8 million each. It's close. But here's the thing: this is my point again. The risk that he took over here was astronomical. If he goes and he gets his fucking ass kicked by Tyson Fury, like that, I think that's what the missing component. The reason this is such a heroic thing, what Francis did, is exactly why no one was planning to watch the fight. I can't even imagine how low the pay-per-view numbers were because no one thought he had any chance whatsoever, which is why when he won, it puts him in this position of tremendous leverage, right? So the only way for this to have made, the PFL deal kind of muddies the waters, but in all honesty, prior to him fighting for like Tyson Fury, who knows if they're even going to be able to find him an opponent that makes sense in PFL. Like everything changed on Saturday night, and it all changed because of how well Francis did, which that's why it's like hard for me to even kind of like go back and forth because no one thought he was going to get the Tyson Fury fight. Candidly, if he would have remained steadfast in how he went into his free agency, which was absent a manager, he never would have gotten that fight. He never would have gotten that fight. He might have been able to, this. Well, I don't want to talk too much inside baseball, but the bottom line is how he went into free agency versus how it ended up going was not necessarily something he could have relied on here. It is all worked out because of how well that he did against Tyson Fury, which is why the fight was so incredible because he bet on himself.
You know full well he has a contract. So as far as what he's going to make in his next fight, he already has a contract. This isn't a discussion, but it's people like you that act like it should be. It's already done. That's what we did. Remember that day we gave you a $2 million signing bonus? Remember that day we gave you an opportunity to go over and do the Fury fight? It's because we wanted something back. We have there's no discussion on what the next fight is. Ariel, do you want to know why, from a pay-per-view standpoint, Fury versus Ngannou didn't work? Turned out to be this incredible sporting event. You and I have more of a passion. I mean, look at us arguing. We're friends. But that's because it was so great. How rare, right? But do you want to know, if we were to back up, why it didn't do well on pay-per-view? Because that should be what you're really asking. That would be the exciting thing. Would you like me to answer it, Ariel?
Sure.
I can't tell if this is just a fiction show. I'll play along. 10 and 20 million.
No, but I have a follow-up about what you just said before. But fine. For now, yes. Why?
It's super important that you understand this.
Okay, so I assume you guys can read this. Anybody who's just listening, Chael says there's two sides to discuss: the competitive side, which exceeded expectations, absolutely, and the financial side, which met expectations. The revenue was a planned loss in exchange for a spectacle. So that makes sense. Okay, so he says, nothing was incorrect by me. It was an opinion, and I was there to share my opinion, which was a celebration of Francis' performance. Ariel was indignant that the financial loss to the event host is not reflective as to the intellect of the decision to book the match in spite of a list of boxers who worked toward the opportunity and a line of mixed martial artists who earned the chance to battle. That's a fair point. And like, that's why I kept harping on the team that got Francis this fight in general. You know, because, you know, information that both Chael and I have is more than just the general public about, like, you know, who's responsible for these fights getting put together. You know what I mean? So, like, at the time that people made decisions, like, everything worked out for Francis in like a way that's bordering on unbelievable. Francis should not have been personal. The story should be told the way it happened, good or bad. It's not a rebuke on Dana, who had nothing to do with the match, but it keeps being associated with it as a type of gotcha, very odd behavior, and I'm owed an apology. He should apologize. I haven't finished this, but if you know, if it's being presented as a I don't know, as a gotcha on Chael, or like, this is what I'm saying. Like, the reason why I'm interested in what Dana's going to say is only because of the outcome. Because, and I've said this in every single video, that the assumption that Dana made was that Francis was going to go into enemy territory in boxing against Tyson Fury while currently being considered the baddest man on the planet, because MMA is considered a more, credible combat sport than boxing. And if he goes out there and Tyson Fury boxes his head off and fucking puts him into the ground, then how are you going to sell the fact that your champion in UFC is still the toughest guy in the world? Like, people are not that fucking smart. You know, if people see someone get their ass kicked, then they think like, oh, all right, well, that guy's the baddest man on the planet. Look at what Tyson Fury did to him. And if you try to have a conversation, you're like, do you understand what would happen in a fucking MMA fight? They don't hear that. They're making decisions on whether they're going to buy an event or not. So Dana made an incredibly well-founded decision that turned out to be wrong. Do you know what I mean? That's why the story's so incredible, is because no one gave Francis a prayer in this fight. No one. And anyone who today or this week is saying, like, I called it, the best you're going to find are people being like, he's got a chance. I mean, you know, the best point that I saw of someone saying that they had given him a chance in the fight and then they explained their reasoning was, oh my God, Teddy Atlas. And Teddy Atlas's reasoning was, look, man, the guy knows how to fight and he's been in these huge events before. You put a guy who's never been in the spectacle type of fight that was. By the way, like, did anybody else have that thought when you saw how big that venue was? And you're like, dude, fucking imagine walking into that place, your first boxing match against Tyson Fury. Like, it gave me an anxiety attack thinking about it. And so his thinking was like, his nerves aren't going to break him because he's been there before. And that's basically all you can come up with. You know, puncher's chance won't break under the lights. But Francis came through, which is why he's in the incredible position that he's in now. Whoops. Let's continue.
Owners miss this all the time. There's 5 guys in the world that know how to make money in fighting, but it's important that you get that, because there's a major lesson here that somebody could look at and observe. The reason this, you have the UFC heavyweight champion who never lost his belt, at least not competitively.
Hang on. I'm going to address this really quick. So I saw this. I saw that Schaub put that up, and he was like, how come he got so long to get up? And I saw that because John McCarthy responded to it and said, it's 10 seconds to be on your feet. And if you watch it again, he was up on his feet in 6 seconds. Like, I don't think there anyone who was watching the fight at the time and was like, man, that was a super long count. Like, Fury was up really quick. That's, at least unless John McCarthy's wrong about the rules, that's a moot point that is not correct.
Versus the biggest star in all of boxing, any weight class, any way you want to do it. Nobody moves the needle. Like, why did that not work? The answer is significance. That's the answer, but it's important that you get this. There wasn't a significance. Win or lose, Francis, there's no rematch. Every time you have somebody, a Mayweather.
Rematch clause was guaranteed if Francis won, not if he lost. There's a rematch clause which gave Tyson Fury the ability to exercise it if he wanted to. If Francis beats him, he has to rematch him. If Francis doesn't beat him, then he doesn't have to. That is why I did the video yesterday about the decision where you're like, oh, weird, split decision. So you got another fight booked already with Tyson Fury and Usyk that's already on the books contractually, comes down to the wire, and they're like, split decision for Fury. I'm not good enough. I like scoring boxing. I'm not an objective observer. I can just acknowledge that like if I watch this fight 100 times, I'm always going to think Francis won because I wanted him to win, But when you think about that, though, and the amount of money that's behind what they're doing and the fact that Chael made, which is this event was essentially made, an exhibition was made to be a promotional vehicle for Fury and Usyk or Fury or whoever he was going to fight in December. That's what this was there for. This was like, this was like Jake Paul picking Ben Askren. It's like, give him a big name so he can show how incredible he is under the lights as a promotional tool for this next thing that we're going to do. And no one gave fucking Francis a shot whatsoever. Whoops.
Whether a De La Hoya, Mike Tyson, the announcers.
It's like a marketing spend for your next one.
Let that part of the contract out. Should he lose, there's an automatic rematch clause. That was the problem with Francis. It's why promoters won't do a one-off. It's why a promoter didn't do this. It was done by an entity. But it's important that you understand that. Francis, win or lose, goes back to MMA. Win or lose, Tyson Fury fights that fat bald guy in the front row on December 23rd. So there wasn't a significance. It's important that you get that. Because when you talk about his next fight, that won't be signed by a Bob Arum or an Eddie Hearn because they can't. Those guys sign a minimum of 3 fight deals because if you win, I need to know I've got you down the road. If you lose, I can't guarantee you a fortune.
Anyone who takes that bet that it did over 300 is not smart. I would bet you're right.
0-1 right now.
But the next one will.
With a lot of buzz. If you become 0-2, there's no buzz. We got 3 fights. We got Joshua, we got Fury, we got Wilder. If I don't have you both locked up, I'm not going to do the match. That's the thing that you miss. That's where free agency is a problem.
I know nothing about this. Chael's 100 times better source than me about how they structure boxing contracts traditionally.
Deontay and Francis could be made right now. That would be a massive event. But when you're selling the story of the event, you're doing it just because. You're doing it just to see. You're doing it just so we know. You're not doing it in something that will lead to something else because you don't have them on a multi-fight contract. That's the part of the business everybody, including yourself, misses time and time again. These deals aren't one-offs. They're 3-offs. And you're not going to get a guy to sign a contract for the next fight and the next one, promising you if there's not an escalation. You can't promise too big of an escalation because you don't know if he's going to win the previous one. It gets complicated, and you don't understand that.
And
the Usyk and Fury fight has a guaranteed rematch for both guys, validating what he just said. That I know for sure. There's a guaranteed rematch for Usyk if he loses. There's a guaranteed rematch for Tyson Fury if he loses. So that fight is at least 2 fights, if not 3, if they need to do a trilogy, which is why when you look at a split decision, 1 point in the direction of Fury, they got a lot of money and energy locked up in this next thing they're doing, which is probably the entire reason they did this fight, was consider it was going to lose, but it's a marketing vehicle for the Tyson Fury and Usyk fight.
The part that you don't understand. You keep talking about the entity. It's right in your face and you're blowing right by it. You're applying 2010 rules, 2000 rules to 2023. These are new rules. These are Saudi Arabia rules. They don't play by the same rules that you're used to. They don't play by the same rules as Eddie Hearn and Bob Arum. They could do whatever the fuck they want. They just paid, and to your point, probably lost a lot of money, right? To bring in all these guys to put on this event. It was the Super Bowl on steroids, and they'll do it again. And they'll do it again, and they're doing it this weekend with WWE, and they'll do it with Fury Usyk, and they'll do it with the next Francis Ngannou fight. And so you're applying these old rules, 3 fights. I think you were referring to PFL when you said they. The chairman and founder of the PFL, Don Davis, was on this show on Monday. You need to start watching this show more. He said, and I quote, "We get him either in March or December."
For the
His
record,
next fight doesn't have
I haven't seen that interview.
to be. in PFL. His next fight could be back in Riyadh against Deontay Wilder or in Africa against Joshua. What are you talking about? He is going to make 20 to 30 to 40 million in his next fight. He made 10 to 20 in this.
Correct, incorrect. Well, correct, misleading. He's going to make a fortune in the next one. If it's me, okay? If it's me, and I cannot stress this enough, the fight to make for Francis that will be the barn burner of the century. By the way, if Chael talks in the chat and I miss it, you guys just let me know so I can scroll up and put it on. The fight. There is not a better fight than Rumble in the Jungle 2 between Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou, or if you wanted to do Deontay, whatever. But the point is, the next one is a boxing match against either Anthony Joshua or Deontay Wilder, because they're the two other huge names in Africa, Rumble in the Jungle 2. That will be not only the fucking fight, because they could, I mean, Jesus, they could do a 200,000 person stadium, which I don't think exists in the world, fill it. But that's what Francis wants. Like, that's Francis's dream. That's what Francis wants, is he wants to bring combat sports to Africa in a meaningful way. And people who know the history of the Rumble in the Jungle 1, Muhammad Ali and George Foreman in Africa, like, you name it after a historic fight like that, and it's Francis's homecoming. He's the heavyweight champion, or the, whatever, lineal champion in the UFC. People, think he beat the current champion in heavyweight boxing. You have him fight against Anthony Joshua in Africa. That's a fucking no-brainer, and everyone will buy that pay-per-view.
In this last one.
Which again, and I just want to state this because I don't know if a lot of people are paying attention to this, but I put a video up today that said that they are talking about doing Francis December 23rd in the date that they had set for Usyk and Fury. And I believe the tweet said something along the lines of, they are going to keep this date and they're going to throw an ocean of money at Francis. And then they said, let me just show this to you again really quick in case I didn't show this to you yet. They said it would either be between Parker or Zhilei Zhang. I swear to God, if Francis does that, he is smoking crack. Do not do that fight. Unless they pay you $200 million. Do not do that fight. All risk. Don't do it. Anyway, let's continue.
And one day he'll prove me right. So what are you saying? Just those two numbers together are more than what he would have made with the UFC. And oh, by the way, if he was booked to fight John Jones in Madison Square Garden, if he would have taken that fight, the fight wouldn't even be happening. They would have done the same thing that they did to Stipe. Hey, we're not going to put you in an interim fight. We don't want to.
I'm going to not even comment on injuries because no one should have or could have foreseen injury outcomes, because now you're really talking about, what would have been right. And then it's like this, let's call injuries an act of God for this argument, because no one should have considered, like, if you were sitting there over a contract, because we're talking about decisions. The conversation is about, did this person make the right decision at this point, or should they be held accountable by the public or whatever? Like, there's no one who is smart who should have been sitting there like, hey, Francis, let's start factoring in the likelihood that John Jones tears his pec muscle and you would have been out of that fight. Or let's think about if you tear your MCL and it's the first serious injury of your career, like, that shouldn't be considered in the decision criteria in my opinion.
Insult you with our bullshit interim titles. So we're going to book Aspinall and Pavlovich on 2 weeks notice because John Jones is out for a year. So how could you now say, knowing how this whole story played out, that this guy made a mistake, that he fumbled the bag, that free agency doesn't work? Now, does it work for everyone? No, it doesn't. I said at the beginning of my show, it does not work for everyone. If you're a guy in the UFC, if you're Sean Strickland, stay in the UFC.
For sure.
But to say, with Saudi Arabia money involved and them having an offer on the table right now for him to fight in March, come on. You're applying old rules to the new game, Chael. It's right there. The entity that you're speaking of is right there in front of you. They don't play by the same rules as everyone else.
There's not a word of what you just said with the tone and narrative that you wanted to be interpreted that was correct.
What?
Your message, since I've got on here today, Ariel, your message has been that this is good business, which would seep into somebody else's mind. If some other fighter attempted to do this, they need to know the dangers of being a lone wolf. And that is my message. I'm not painted against Francis or what he did. I'm painted against the narrative. It's very tough. You're talking about Saudi Arabia and it's this one-off, and then you mentioned they're going to do the WWE and they're going to do Usyk. I mean, it's one of these things. I thought we were talking about Francis. I thought they were going to book him and have him
In
do
March,
something.
yeah.
And either way, yes, if they wanted to do it, they wanted to put the money up. But if we're discussing things that lose, that would be like you becoming a financial advisor and then saying, just go play the lottery. Look at this guy. He won. I can't believe you're staying in college and reading these books. I can't believe you're investing into a 401k. Why do you even know what a Roth is? You go play the lottery. That's your message. I'm trying to.
And I promise you, I had not seen that. That's exactly what my point was. Yes, made the right decision. If we're talking about hindsight being 2020, if Francis loses the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round against Gane, okay, if he loses let's just think about just that 3rd, 4th, 5th round against Gane, where with a torn MCL, he realizes I can't stand with this guy. I can't move. Like, I can't move the way that I normally do. I'm not explosive. I'm not fast. I'm going to have to rely on wrestling. And he pulls it out and wins a 3-2 decision over Cyril Gane. If he loses that fight, he does the PFL deal, he'll still be able to sign with them. The UFC would have offered him. Everyone knows this. The UFC was going to put him against the wall and surgically remove his balls on their next offer. For sure. They were going to make an example of him for the exact reason that they don't want to have to do this with everybody. They don't want everybody to be taking them down to the wire. The UFC's business model relies on certainty with their fighters, which is another reason why when you look at the Kung Lee fight, whatever, what is the name of that? Whatever, the lawsuit between Kung Lee and all those guys that represents all the fighters. Like, you can look at that, and now as a person who wants to see guys get paid more, you could be rooting for Kung Lee and all them. My point about that is that do you love that the UFC exists as it does today? Because I do. And what I'm saying is, like, you needed to be able to lock guys into contracts so that you knew which guys were going to be in your organization so that you could pour marketing dollars into them and then promote the fights going forward without having to worry about, oh, this guy's a champ, then he leaves. This guy's a champ. Like, that is the UFC's business model. They have to know that they have guys long-term. So banging against Francis, going somewhere else, there's only one way to do that. If someone is publicly trying to get out of their contract, and they're the champion, and they don't end up in free agency with the belt, you have to make them hurt for it. I mean, that's not going to be the case with Nate Diaz, but he's a very weird exception, right? So, like, Chael's not wrong and Ariel's not wrong. They're actually not even disagreeing with each other. Ariel's right. Francis ended up making the right decision. Chael is right. That it's literally like saying you should drop out of college and go play the lottery because this guy did that and he hit the lottery. You know what I mean? Like, it's literally like the two arguments are they're not conflicting. You know what I mean? Whoops.
Speak a little bit clearer, and I'm trying to let people know in terms of the norms, which were created before you and I. We didn't change them. Created before you and I. One thing that the audience doesn't understand is promoters sign you to a minimum of 3 fights. And if your title fight is on the 3rd fight, it's not happening unless you do an extension. But there's a relevance, and there's a reason for that. There's a reason the WBC sanctioned that fight, but wouldn't put up Fury's belt. They couldn't put it around Francis, who they didn't have under contract. It's a very standard of the industry. And to look at that fight, which is one of the great sporting events I've ever had the privilege of seeing, more hype after than any sport I've ever seen, Ariel. That's a big deal. And to know that it lost money the day of, you got to look at that and try to figure out why, if you're trying to learn about the sport.
Which sport are we talking about? Because I know more about boxing than you do.
Okay, so Francis would have made $1 to $2 mil per fight if he remains champion. That's not correct. That's not correct. No offense. That's not correct. As champion, he was going to make significantly more than that. Significantly more. Not 10 mil more, but much more. If he lost the belt, he would have been one of those guys where with a win bonus, he's getting close to 7 figures. That's why you have to factor in he has to keep the belt in the UFC offer versus these. But at the time, he doesn't know what these offers are because he's not allowed to negotiate with the external forces until he's out of his UFC contract. Even when he fought his last fight against Cyril Gane, he still can't talk to anyone until December of that year. So UFC 270 was January of 22. He wins. He's the champion. He goes and gets surgery. He's fought all the fights on his contract, but he has the champ clause, so he's still under contract. December, whatever it was, I don't know, call it 18th. That's when his sunset clause was up. And Francis blew it. He blew that. Like, so if what we're doing is actually getting into the weeds on what Francis did right and what Francis did wrong, I will keep coming back to the fact that Francis thought that all he had to do was just kind of be like, I'm a free agent, so I can go do this and that. Okay, so he didn't have a team managing him. How many videos about that did I do at the time? So the day that he ends up in free agency, how did you guys hear about it? Like, how did everybody hear that Francis was in free agency in December of 2022 when he became the first unrestricted free agent in the history of modern UFC, who was a reigning champion 24 hours ago? Okay. Do you guys remember? You found out because the UFC put out a press release that said they cut him. Okay. They cut him. Now, if Francis would have had a team managing him at the time, right? Francis done a lot of things right. Okay. Like this is what I'm saying. Like, I've done nothing but talk about how incredible this story is. I fucking cried. This is a true story, dude. I was telling his story to these women on the beach the day Sunday. So I was coming back Monday. So on Sunday, I'd had like 5 drinks and I was telling his whole story. I started crying in front of these strangers. Okay. Like, that's how inspired I am by the story. But to set things as they happened, if Francis has a team, they would have had a press release they would have been talking to the other guys. They would have had his options there, and he would have done a press conference that would have looked like, like LeBron if he just, I'm taking my talents to Miami. Of course. Of course. That was a huge missed opportunity. Same as what he should have done after the fight when he won. He should have told Usyk to get the fuck out of here. That was Chael's idea, and it was a brilliant one. But nonetheless, like, it's not like he did everything right. It's just that he ended up winning this fight. Anyway. Once in a lifetime result, never be duplicated in MMA in our lifetime. I totally agree, and that is because of the risk. The analogy of the lottery is exactly right. As far as I can tell, I mean, I guess this sound, like if Ariel's about to tell Chael he doesn't know about the boxing business, I can see how this is going to end up getting much more contentious. I have not seen this, but as far as I've seen in this conversation, they're not disagreeing with each other, but Ariel set this interview up as a way to the start of the interview was Ariel was like, here's some crow, Chael, eat your fucking crow. Okay. Like, so if we're looking for fault in this argument, it's clearly on Ariel because he set this up to Seawalk on Chael. The actual argument, they are not disagreeing with each other. They're just not. Thus far, it looks like this goes for another half an hour.
Because Devin Haney was a champion with Top Rank and left to go to Matchroom just now, and he's fighting on December 9th against Regis Progress. So you're trying to explain to me about a sport that I actually know more than you. MMA, you can try to bully me into this type of thing, but I actually know more than you in this world, Chael. I really do. And I will tell you once again that we are not saying on this.
Oh my God. Should I time this out? If you say, Jesse, you're lying, and then follow it up with something that is not what I said, I'm putting you in timeout. So be careful with the all caps and saying I lied. I said if he would have signed the contract he was offered, he would have been making significantly more than $1 to $2 million. He didn't. He was making $600,000 to fight. Okay. He was making $600,000 and he turned down 10 times that. That's the point.
Program that every fighter should play by these rules, but we have the benefit of hindsight. We know how the Francis story played out. You were one of the guys who was saying this was a mistake. You turned the gun on the promotion. You screwed up, right? You've said that, but now we know how it played out. He rolled the dice and he won. Should Sean O'Malley do it? Probably not. Should Sean Strickland do it? Probably not. But this one lone wolf did it and won. So why can't we say that it worked out for him? I'm not talking about did it work out for Top Rank or South. Francis Ngannou was a winner, financial winner. Your words, financial winner. He financially won in a massive way, and he's about to win even more. Now, that's my point.
I don't think Chael has contradicted what Ariel is saying, though. All I've heard Chael say is, if anyone else did this, it would be utterly insane.
That's the point. Can you not concede that he financially won in this arrangement? Now that we saw the whole story play out, the whole arc.
Not only is it not your point, not only are you shifting, quiet, not only are you shifting to try to fit the narrative, Ariel, had it been your point, which it absolutely was not, had it been your point, you would have had this victory party 2 months ago when it got announced. You would have
I
had this
did.
victory party when it got signed.
I did
You
that.
would and I would have been making the show the day that he had it. What we're talking about in the celebration of Francis, who is owed his due. We're talking about a celebration about the competitiveness. We're trying to figure out how we shock the world. We're trying to figure out what training it is. We're trying to figure out the problems with boxing. You know, I got to give Fury credit. There is nothing worse from a spirit of sportsmanship. It's very good for business, right? When you're in the fight business, never stop talking, never stop making excuses, ever. But from a sportsmanship, that's very turned off. It was great by Fury.
I completely agree with this and should have talked more about this in my videos.
I was hoping that Fury in the moment would have called it out for what it was. Fury very clearly and his father very clearly did not know if they won. And if they had to bet, they were thinking it went the other way. I had hoped that Fury would have actually said that in the microphone and given Francis his due. Let's set that aside. First off, Fury had his bell rung. He'd been down on the canvas. He just got exhausted, worked his ass off. It was super close. And he's now got to go into business with Usyk. So I can give.
Okay, what I was talking about is what Tyson Fury said in his interview subsequent to the fight when they asked him, you know, like everybody wanted him to say like, oh, I didn't take Francis seriously. All the boxing people wanted him to be like, oh yeah, my ankle's broken. I'm blind in one eye. Obviously Francis would never have a chance against me. And he did the exact opposite. He was like, I had a great camp. I felt great. Francis did incredible. And I thought that was such a fucking classy move I'm a huge Tyson Fury fan, for the record. Huge Tyson Fury. You won't find me saying a single negative thing about Tyson Fury ever.
Fury, a little bit of wiggle room here. But I do think that it matters when you go over to Francis. He didn't call for the rematch.
Yeah,
he didn't call for the rematch with Fury. Even KSI a week earlier knew to call for the rematch. And he lets Usyk into the ring, and Usyk disrespects him. Usyk comes in and he tries to say that Fury was coasting. That's the part that has always bothered me about sports from a negative standpoint that I appreciate that Fury didn't do. People have tried to say he was hurt. Fury has stopped them and said, no, I wasn't.
Yep.
They tried to say you didn't prepare. He said, stop. I prepared longer for this fight than ever. That's the hardest opponent I've had in 10 years. I appreciate those things from Tyson.
Me too.
But then I think that we should be looking into and trying to figure out what did make it so hard. Why have we always believed you got to be a second generation boxer to make it to the highest levels? Why do we believe to make Olympic teams, you've got to be a teenager? It turns out you can be a 37-year-old with bad leg that only trained for a couple of years. I mean, it's a really fascinating thing. And I don't know why you keep trying to change the story and make it ugly about money.
Okay, so here's one thing. I've thought about this a lot. I've thought about this a lot in the last, however many days since the fight about, wait, hang on. Sorry. Did I miss Chael? Chael, if I miss you, text me. If you're still in here and I miss you, just text me and I'll scroll up and find it. But I thought about this side of it a lot about like Francis doing just kind of like, zippity doo dah. Now I want to box. And he goes and trains with Mike Tyson for a couple months and goes out and has this performance. And I thought about that a bunch. What I have come up with is that he actually was training to box this, we all know that when he started MMA, it was like just to pay the bills while he trained to box. And people were trying to tell him like, look, man, realistically, you're not going to make it in boxing. Like that's what they're thinking when they're putting him into these MMA fights. They're like, that's not possible. Let's give you something that is possible. So they put him in an MMA fight. He decapitates a guy in his first fight. They're like, holy shit, this guy's like some kind of freak. So on and so forth. But what matters is what's in Francis's mind when he's training. Because we all know he's been training to box. What UFC fighter doesn't do boxing training? All of them do. But it's about your mental. If he, in his own mind, is like, I need to learn wrestling so I can't get taken down again like Stipe. But in his brain, in his end game is all about boxing. Well, then he's actually been training to box for years and years and years and years and years. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to say something about that particular point as it relates to Francis. Now, any way you slice it, he's like the one. He's like the one, dude. I don't know how else to interpret this whole thing than to at least call out the fact that like It's not just about the financial decisions, the promotional decisions, his contractual decisions. It's about the fact that, like, dude, no one could do this. You know what I mean? Like, no one could fucking do this. They can't do it. That's why I can't get through the story, because it's just like, you can't do it. You can't be 25 years old and just be like, you know, I think I'm going to go be the heavyweight champion of the world in boxing. And it's going to take you 2 years to get to step one, which is your first boxing. Like, you can't do it. He's the one, dude. Anyway.
Francis had the money. That's not the story here. Had Francis gone down in the first round, where the result would have been the same, he would have lost. He'd still be 0-1 and not boxing in his next match. Be the same, but he didn't do that. He went out there and competed. He tried to bring honor to himself. He tried to show that this dream could come true. That's the story of this fight. Your message is to try to tell other fighters and hedge them into going into that direction. Ariel, it's not true. It's not what you mean. You've stumbled over your own words here multiple times.
I said it at the beginning of the show.
From a competitive standpoint, he exceeded expectations. From a financial standpoint, he met expectations. This was a loss.
Again,
dude, they like, you know, I'll tell you guys when they are disagreeing. Thus far, I have not seen them disagree. Oh, God damn it.
Son Francis, man, got pushed on your show by his boss. Then Eddie Hearn came onto your program, okay, citing you as the source. And Eddie Hearn floated an idea to the audience of Rumble in the Jungle Part 2 and Gano versus Joshua. We're even going to take it to Africa. That was the feeling out process. He did not get the response he was expecting and has already moved on from that idea.
Really? I fucking hope that's not true, dude. I hope that's not true. If his entire, like, litmus test on whether or not that was a good idea is how people responded on Twitter, he is tripping. I mean, the likelihood that he sees this is fucking zero, but Jesus, do that fucking fight. You do that fight and promote it correctly, that will... I'm getting flushed thinking about it, dude.
I get that this is sought after. I also like Francis a lot in 3 matches, but 3 specifically. None in MMA in terms of what can be done.
Me too.
I like him with Joshua.
Love it.
But he's not under contract with Eddie Hearn. So now you've got a whole other contract. Can you work that out and get a buyout clause? I like him against Fury.
He's under contract with no one.
But you stated the only one that can pull this off is Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, Eddie Hearn lives in England and wants to take it to a different continent. So you're kind of going over
Fury's
yourself.
Not an Eddie Hearn guy.
Of course, you have Wilder.
No, Joshua is an Eddie Hearn guy.
But Wilder is going to have a great misconception in terms of what he's worth if he's coming over to more of an MMA realm. And if you find a promoter that's willing to put Wilder and Fury together, it's going to be a very hard thing to find, because you're talking sought after. Sought after means numbers. It means you got a lot of suitors at the table. I'm only sharing for you. You've really narrowed it down. By your own words, you had one place, which is Saudi Arabia. Now I'm attempting to explain to your audience, who you daily mislead because you don't know any better. I'm here to smarten you. You don't have multiple suitors, but the reason is this. Multiple suitors operate on the same business model, which I must have you for 3 fights. Wilder and Francis aren't in a position to do that. I'm only sharing with your audience how rare this one thing was. You're taking them directions about the business you don't know.
You keep sticking to this 3 fights thing, and that's not true. Francis is his own promoter. He can co-promote with anyone. He has,
as of right now, that's true,
his own promotion that he could co-promote with. And to your point,
can he co-promote with the UFC, Ariel? Does he co-promote with the UFC?
Yeah. Whose fault is that?
Yeah,
whose fault is that? Whose fault is that? But now we're talking about MMA, and you keep saying that the 3 biggest fights for him.
When Eddie Hearn was on your show,
when we're talking MMA, he can only fight in PFL. That's the one limitation that he has. But as far as if he was going to do that's the one thing I keep coming back to is like, okay. If I can't fucking believe I'm going to say this. I cannot fucking believe I'm going to say this. When I first said, what's the dream fight for me, which was in 2019, if I remember correctly, and I said Deontay Wilder against Francis Ngannou, mixed rules, which is boxing in MMA gloves. As I think about this right now, Francis could lose that fucking fight. Because what I heard PFL talking about was doing a mixed rules fight, so it would be, I assume would be kickboxing in MMA gloves against Deontay Wilder. He could lose that fight. He's obviously a huge favorite. But if Francis can beat Tyson Fury in boxing, certainly Deontay Wilder can beat Francis in an MMA fight or a mixed rules fight. I don't love the idea of putting Francis at risk for anything when I think about that Rumble in the Jungle fight or the rematch against Tyson Fury. And make no mistake about this. If Francis loses in MMA, that crushes any of these boxing matches. I want to see him box, personally.
He say he wanted to co-promote with Francis?
Absolutely.
Ariel?
He knows that he has to. He knows
said
that.
those words because I watched the interview. Actually, he did it. When Don Davis was on your show,
Yes.
did he mention co-promoting, Ariel?
Yes, he did. He mentioned co-promoting with the UFC, but he's probably smart enough to know that that will never happen. And to your point regarding, by the way, to your point about Don Davis is saying that the biggest fight in MMA for him is John Jones because he is so big. Because fighting some jabroni in PFL isn't big enough. Because
well, of course, the John Jones fight is the biggest one. That's the one fight he can't get. He can't get that fight. That can't. There's no that he cannot do. I've had conversations with people I respect who are smart guys that are like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I think the John Jones fight can. No, that can't happen. The UFC, what Chael's talking about, is 10 times more true when it comes to UFC. There is fucking no way that they're going to put their heavyweight champion against a guy who currently is under contract with the PFL and give that guy the opportunity to starch their heavyweight champion, considered the all-time greatest fighter of all time, and then go back and fulfill his contract against a competing organization. That will never happen. There's no fucking way Dana does that fight. 0%, negative 100% chance.
Because he is such a big star. You don't have the biggest star on your roster. You don't have LeBron or Manning on your roster and have him fight some C-level fighter. That's because he is so.
This is a great question. I don't. I think the Rumble in the Jungle 2.0 would be bigger. Significantly bigger.
Big.
So if they promoted it right.
Chael, if he fights a boxer next in Saudi Arabia or Africa, he is not going to sign a 3-fight deal with Top Rank, with Eddie Hearn, with Queensberry. He's not going to do it. In fact, guess what? You know how I know that? Because he didn't sign a 3-fight deal with anyone to fight Tyson Fury, and he still got that fight done. Why didn't anyone make him sign a 3-fight deal? I don't know why you keep sticking to this 3-fight deal thing. He shocked the world by leaving the UFC. He shocked the world by getting the PFL deal. He shocked the world by getting the freedom of the Tyson Fury.
You don't know why
and now he's going to shock the world again.
Ariel, you don't know why I keep saying the 3-fight deal? You don't understand that I'm attempting to tell your audience, who you mislead every day, including today, and it's by your ignorance. You're not like doing this out of fun. You don't know these things.
I do.
You don't understand that I'm trying to tell them, pick any promoter from the time they were born that they've heard about. You can even bring Don King in if you want to do me. You bring in any promoter that goes by the standard industry of boxing. They're going to have 3 fights. You keep bringing this one off. It's like tomorrow you're going to be screaming from the rooftops if Elon Musk announces he's going to start doing fighting, and whoever goes over there is going to be great. Like, if you're talking about doing losses, if you're talking about doing bad business, my mind doesn't even work that way. If you're talking about things that are not viable and sustainable, my mind doesn't even work that way. If you're talking about operating within the standards, how you could actually get Eddie Hearn to sign off on what he did, how you could actually get these things done by a standard industry. I mean, you came out, you tried to tell your audience that Francis is now a promoter. Really, Ariel, why don't you tell our audience the address of that office so they can swing by? Why don't you give them the phone number to Francis's secretary so they can set up a lunch? What? Because he filled out a piece of paperwork and wrote promotions on it. I'm not turning on him. You're misleading, and you know it. You know there's not a production company. You know there's not cameras and lights. You know there's not distribution. You knew what you were saying. You lied to your own audience, and you got caught for the 4th time in 20 minutes.
How did I get caught? No, I don't appreciate you trying to.
I know nothing about how any of this works. The boxing promotions business, I don't know. The only thing I know is whether they have contractual ability to do deals. I don't know who's responsible for putting together the stadium. I don't know who's responsible for filming it. I have no experience with it whatsoever, so I'm gonna have nothing to add.
Spread this narrative. How did I lie? He is not signed to any promoter. Show me who was.
You said he is an ability through his promotion company to co-promote with anybody.
Yes,
that's a quote, Ariel, from you.
He did that on Saturday.
I quoted
we just
you
saw
that you ran back.
We just saw it on Saturday.
Okay, great. So you had Don Davis on, and you had
wasn't his
Eddie
promoter.
Herding on. There's only 5 guys out there that put on fights. You had 2 of them on Monday. Did either one of them say they would do that? You said yes a minute ago, and they didn't, you liar.
Do what? Do what? PFL.
Co-promote with them.
Yes, they did. They did.
You said they would do that, and they didn't.
They did. They did.
You were my source.
Don Davis said he would work.
I'm quoting you.
I feel like we're now like going in circles here. Okay, let me ask you this: if Francis Ngannou fights in a boxing match next, does he have to?
Hang on. Let me hang on. Let me just roll up on this. So PFL has financial backers. They do. You know who they are? I don't. I know what country they come from, though, which seems like quite the coincidence when it comes to the Tyson Fury fight. Same country. Don't know if it's the same people, but highly likely would be my guess. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's where their money came from, as I understand it. EBT, Wheelchair Drew Reloaded, thank you very much. Sorry, off topic. Rigo has been doxing guru. Oh God, come on, dude. We're not doing this on this one. Thank you for the $5. Appreciate you, dude.
Sign with a promotion?
If he's going to do it by the standard.
No standard. No standard. Don't give me the standard bullshit.
Then no, of course he doesn't have to do it. No, John Jones doesn't have to fight. No.
Thank you.
Ariel, excuse me.
What? No, of course he doesn't. He doesn't. He gets to play by his own rules.
Rude. That is beyond rude to cut your guest off before he makes his point.
Oh, okay.
That is beyond rude to claim
calling me a liar
before his
4
point
times
was made.
What are you talking about?
How could you be right if a sentence wasn't completed?
You just said no.
That is a dirty move.
You just said no.
Dirty move by you.
Go ahead.
Can John Jones fight somewhere else in MMA aside from the UFC next? The answer is yes. Yes, he can. You're, of course, going to push back and say, Chael, that's not our standard. Now, they've got a contract. It's got exclusivity. We had Dana White on, and this is what he said. So you asked me a trick question. Can he box somewhere? Can he do it? Can we wake up on Mars? Every statement's true if you say the word can, and then you cut me off partway through. He cannot get signed and will not get signed by Eddie Hearn, by Bob Arum, by meaningful people within boxing who we would expect. It's like a guy says, I want to go and do WrestleMania. Well, if Vince won't sign you, I'm sure you can go do wrestling somewhere else. It's not the same thing that we're talking about. And the answer to your question is no. He will not get signed with your likely suspects if you don't have a multi-fight deal.
So how do you do it on Saturday?
Because you lack significance.
So how do you do it on Saturday?
You lack significance. The fight has got to be about something.
So how
does anybody know? Let me look something up real quick to respond to that. Anthony Joshua. So Anthony Joshua does not have any current belts, right? I don't think he does. That's the one issue is you really, really, really want Francis to be fighting for a belt in whatever fight that he has. But I honestly do think that it being in Africa is a big enough deal because then honestly, think about this, dude. If he did Rumble in the Jungle to Anthony Joshua, wins by knockout. Like now, see, here's the other thing about that. Is like if Francis would have just caught Fury, I actually think Fury getting up and going the distance was like the best possible outcome for Francis because you can't even just say like, you know, Fury made a mistake, he got caught. It's like, dude, he fought him for 10 fucking rounds. You know, he fought him for 10 rounds. So like, I think that's the best outcome. Now, from here on out, I take that back, dude. If Francis should starch everyone now. If Francis can start, like if he starches it, you do Rumble in the Jungle. He goes out there and he starches Anthony Joshua. They will literally be like, they're going to be going to whoever Fury's fighting and they're going to be like, hey, fuck Us. You know, you're going to have people in anywhere that they go being like, why are you fighting this guy? This is the guy. Like, this is the guy. It'll be one of the biggest events ever. If Francis needs to stick to boxing, I would have him angle for the Anthony Joshua, but if he loses, his career in MMA is over too because no one will watch him in PFL. I don't agree with that, dude. If he loses, like now, like if he lost the decision to Anthony Joshua, because of the performance I don't agree. I don't agree that his career in MMA would be over. In my opinion, I don't think that's true. I think that like I want to see him in boxing for sure. But if he lost to Anthony Joshua, like first of all, I also think like, dude, who is gonna knock him out? You know what I mean? Who's gonna knock him out? Tyson Fury blitzkrieged him with one of the most. Dude, I watched that elbow a couple more times. That shit. No one's going to convince me that he was trying to throw a punch, dude. He threw an elbow at him and he ate it and just didn't even move. No one has ever rattled Francis. Okay. Here's the other thing, dude. And I realize I haven't talked about this on the channel since I put it together. Okay. So like Francis has never once been wobbled in a serious fashion. He's never been knocked down from a strike on the feet. He, if you really think about his entire career, has been impenetrable in terms of his chin. So why is that notable? And also, I'm going to take you back to when he won the title off of Stipe. Okay. Stipe got knocked out. Okay. Like Stipe was getting beat, but the reason he got starched is because Stipe hit him with a shot. And when Francis took a step back, Stipe thought that he had hurt him so bad that he was about to pounce on him to knock him out. And Stipe has said that himself. And Francis was not only not stumbled or hurt, he was completely fine. The force of the shot made him take one step back. So when Stipe came rushing in, he got clipped with a shot that made him unconscious for fucking 10 minutes. Francis, as far as we know, think of how many people that Stipe's knocked out. That's not a guy who is unfamiliar with what a shot feels like that knocks out a heavyweight. He thought he hit Francis with one out of his large body of work that has knocked everyone out. And Francis was like, oh no, good night. He might have the most granite chin ever. You know what I mean? And we don't really have any reason to assume that that's not accurate. Anyway, hang on. Let me continue here. Matt Jack, thank you very much. Umaguma, you can't do Rumble in the Jungle without a belt on the line. It would be big now, but with the belt on the line, it would be the biggest in history. I know, but and I agree with that. The problem is that, and you're right, but all the heavyweight belts are with Usyk and Tyson Fury, and they're going to do the first of minimum 2 fights in like March or April of next year. Or I take that back. They might have said February. But so let's say they fight in February. And let's say Usyk wins a decision, right? They fight again in like 7 months. And then whatever. The absolute earliest that Francis could fight for the heavyweight title is in 2025. That can't be his next boxing match. In my opinion. Like, I don't think that's smart to have him sit and not box again for 15 months. That seems crazy to me, personally. He deserves a rematch with Fury, but Fury is, to Chael's point, contractually locked up for a very long time. Threat to Democracy. I've never watched PFL, never seen a PFL commercial. No one is watching him in the PFL or Africa. Saudi will not spend pointless money forever. Now, my friend, that is an assumption that would be true in almost every other scenario. When you're talking about Saudi, you go to Saudis, right? They're like, these are the wealthiest people on planet Earth. Trillionaires. This is all the oil money. Okay. Those guys are so wealthy, it's unreal. Like spending, losing $60 million to them to build something that's entertaining to them, to elevate the greatness of their country and the impression of them internationally and move towards something that ends up generating lots of money. These are not big losses to them at all. Like not at all. This is a completely different universe. The UFC, I just read an article about their finances because they're going to have their first big, or I don't know about I think it's their first big quarterly report in a week. I bought a shitload of TKO, son. I got me a shitload of TKO stock. And they were talking about the money that they've generated in the first half of 2023, which was something like $661 million. That's a lot of money. That's going to be a good quarterly for TKO. And then now I think with, it'll be, be a couple $1 billion with WWE now also. So regardless of where that lands, you're talking about single-digit billion total revenue. These guys are trillionaires. They can throw around the money it takes to put these events on forever. They could do it as a hobby. Let's continue. I just think PFL was a bad decision. He won't get the eyeballs he deserves. We'll see. I mean, we'll see. We also don't know for sure exactly what the terms I don't know what his final offer from the UFC was, or the really fine details of any of the offers. I know ballparkish. So and you also don't know what France's priorities were. That's the thing that it's the only way that someone can have a really strong opinion one way or the other is if you're applying your own decision criteria to the decision, where Francis's decision criteria, if Francis went into every single conversation was the only thing that is non-negotiable is I have to be able to box and try to attain the heavyweight boxing championship. I don't care about money. That's my number one priority. Then, you know what I mean? He's the guy that's got to live his life. You know what I mean? Carlos, thank you very much for the super chat. Ariel's a hypocrite. He cried for months about other athletes taking Saudi money. Now here he is celebrating Francis. He's Tuesdays, plays the victim mentality while trying to bully. Okay, so I haven't seen him say anything about people taking Saudi money, but the only point that I've heard Ariel make is that now, with the benefit of hindsight, Francis made the right decision. He seems to want to use this time to make Chael eat shit, but he's making an argument that Chael's not even disagreeing with. You know what I mean? Like if you want to talk about who's at fault for why they argued, there's no question about that. It's Ariel. Ariel set this up to try to make Chael eat shit. I mean, you know what I mean? We're talking about the details of their arguments, and their arguments are actually not in contradiction to each other. What Ariel's saying about Francis, with the benefit of hindsight, making the right decision, is correct. And what Chael is saying about this is similar to taking a guy who dropped out of college and put up he inherited $50,000 from his grandma. And so they dropped out of college and put it all in Ethereum in 2015. And it's hey, everyone should drop out of college and put all of your money into some rando cryptocurrency. You know what I mean? It's yeah, of course that was the right decision for that guy with the benefit of hindsight. Now, if one of them is trying to shift the argument in one way or another and I'm just missing it, I don't know, because I'm just responding to both of what they're saying and they aren't contradicting each other. You know what I mean? And the reason it's argumentative is because of how Ariel framed the conversation from the beginning. If same Tyson Fury shows up at an Usyk win is inevitable, I completely disagree. Totally disagree. I think that Francis is a completely different type of heavyweight than the guys who have been, banging around. These guys have all been ever since Klitschko, the heavyweight division has been dominated by these guys who can go like this. Whap. Have you ever sparred against a guy who's fucking a foot taller than you? It's a nightmare, dude. If they're good at putting you on the wrong side of their jab and you're significantly shorter, it's fucking terrible, dude. And obviously my skill set is nowhere near these guys, but it's just that's what I've seen watching boxing since Klitschko. And everyone's oh my God, the guy's so boring. And now everyone's just accepted that if you're going to be a heavyweight, you're going to be successful, you have to be 6'5" or taller. Francis is 6'5", and he's the short guy in this equation now. Usyk is, let me see. Hang on. Usyk's height. Usyk's only 6'3". Interesting. He's only 6'3", 220. You want to know what that makes me want to see? Usyk versus fucking Francis. But I watched the last Usyk fight and then watched it. I didn't see anything that was geez, I think Tyson Fury's in serious trouble. And like I said yesterday, I watched the Tyson Fury fight and the Francis fight. And then I went back and watched the Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury first fight. And I know he fought different in the other two, but he looks exactly the same. I don't see any big difference in how he fought Francis versus how he had been fighting previously.
How did he do it on Saturday?
How did Francis do?
Yeah, no, how did he do it? How did he have a fight on Saturday against Tyson Fury without signing to a promoter?
Well, first off, you had a sanction by the WBC whose president sat in the front row but didn't put the title up. I mean,
It was an exhibition.
Not for nothing. You had a lot of really weird things here.
Sure.
You had a promoter who saw that this was going to be a loss, but it's someone else writing it. And it's important that you understand
You
this.
didn't answer my question. Can you answer my question? How did he do it on Saturday?
I am answering it for you. I'm answering it in more
WBC
detail
is a
than you
sanctioning
could possibly
body.
get.
They're not a promoter.
You can't get this kind of detail anywhere.
WBC is a
That's like trying
sanctioning
to
body.
tell me that Logan Paul and Mayweather fought. And I'll go, well, prove it. Show me on the boxing stats where it's at. You go, well, it was an exhibition. I mean, if we're going to play your game, we're going to keep putting weird
I'm
pieces
just
in
asking
place.
you,
There's no
how
point
did
to
he
doing
do this without signing to promote? Your whole premise here is that he needs to sign with a promoter for 3 fights in order to.
Ariel, excuse me. This wasn't done through a promoter. It was done through an entity who openly lost money and was willing to do it. You keep changing the
And
rules.
why can't that be the next fight? Why can't that be the case for the?
Okay, Umaguma, thank you for the super chat, dude. Feed him 2 fights next year, and he starches both of them, and both then fight the winner of the 2 heavyweight champions, then do title fight in Africa. Him winning a title in Africa is his death. See, well, yes, of course. But again, and I like, listen, this is not a popular or reasonable thing to enter into this conversation at this point, given how this has gone. But I am still extremely risk averse, dude. You know, like I told you guys, like when I would talk to, when he's, there's like this phase when he's with his management, then he was on his own, and then he's back with his management, and all this good stuff happened. But like in this previous time, like, I don't know, like I would always be like, dude, I was saying like the right thing to do is to sign with UFC because I'm just so fucking risk averse, dude. And I'm not like that risk averse, but I am risk averse, dude. Like I'm never a guy who's going to go to Vegas and just have some crazy weekend. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't pay my mortgage this month. Like I'm not wired like that. Like I'm just not wired like that. I'll go have fun, and I could certainly lose enough money in Vegas to where I'm like, fuck, dude. And I have plenty of times where I'm like, God damn it. I wish I had that money back. But it's never going to be money that actually hurts me because I have like strong risk aversion. And so when I think about this right here, and I'm like, have him do 2 boxing matches between now and then, like every time he boxes is a risk. To your point, if he wins, yeah, fucking jackpot, dude. You know what I mean? Fucking jackpot. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know how, I don't know. I don't know who's making decisions over there. I don't know how the decisions are going to get made. I'll be honest, I would not be the right manager for Francis for sure. And not that I would be the right manager for any of these guys in, like playing at this level. I just mean like, it would just be hard for me to advise him correctly because he is so not risk averse. He just is like, this is going to work no matter what, And if you take that approach, then yes, you are correct for sure. Have a G's, thank you very much. Usyk is a natural cruiserweight, lightning quick. He's a problem. Okay, I'm going to watch him again then. I'll watch him again. What does Vegas have to do with Francis getting back on track? Obviously, it has to do with the amount of time that I would advise, or amount of times I would advise Francis to fight in boxing prior to some huge super fight. The premise that he was saying was he should fight twice, starch both of his guys, and then do Rumble in the Jungle for the title. And I'm saying, like, Jesus, that stresses me out even thinking about whether or not, because you take 2 fights. If he loses one of the fights, then that huge fight is off the table. If you go to Rumble in the Jungle now, you have it. You have a bird in hand. If he loses any of the fights between now and then in boxing, then it's gone. If he loses a fight in fucking MMA, it's gone.
The next fight, and Francis goes and laughs to the bank. They seem very happy to partake in this business arrangement.
Excuse me. I didn't know we were operating in make-believe world. I thought you brought an expert in me on, not to think about what could be, to talk about realistically, per the standard of the industry that we operate in, what can be done.
We had
you say, well, could have
His
Francis
Excellency
kicked him on Saturday? And I go, no, we can't kick him. It's against the rules. You go, yes, he could. He could have kicked him, and it would have cost him a point. It's like, Yeah, I guess.
His
I
Excellency,
guess you're
Turkey
right. I
Al
didn't
Sheikh.
interpret the question
Dude, I
like
haven't
that.
seen.
I
I don't
literally
even know
never
what the good parts are. I haven't seen this.
had you be this kind of stupid before. I'm not using other people's words.
You keep
I'm
insulting
using
me.
yours.
You keep insulting me to try to win
You
this
keep
argument,
lying.
and I keep proving you wrong and providing facts.
You haven't
His
proved it once
Excellency,
yet,
Turkey
Ariel.
Al Sheikh,
Why was the
came
WBC title not up?
because
Why did
Francis.
the Why did the WBC champion fight? Shut up. Why did the WBC champion fight and not put his title up? And tell me another time in heavyweight history that's happened. Don't tell me Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes. Tell me a time that a sitting champion fought and didn't put his belt up in a real sport. Go ahead.
Because originally the WBC's stance on this was that because Francis had no professional boxing fights on his record, his boxing matches on his record, that they would not make this a title fight. That's why it was a 10-round fight, not a 12-round fight. In the end, they came around and and who knows if they got paid by this. And in the end, the British Boxing Board of Control also came on board. But when this was first announced at the very beginning in July, when it was a done deal, they felt like it wasn't a real fight because he had no boxing experience. That's why. And because Alexander Usyk is sitting there as the rightful number one contender, he has to defend against Alexander Usyk. And there is some belief that they only okayed for this to happen because the Usyk fight was going to be announced. And there was some belief that the reason why they announced it before the fight happened, which I criticized them for, was because the other sanctioning body, I believe it's the IBF, said, if you don't announce this fight by this day, we are going to strip everyone and we're not going to be involved. So this has to be the next fight. And so these are some of the reasons why it wasn't originally, and these are some of the reasons why eventually they came around, in my opinion. So again, the part that I don't understand about your stance is you keep saying by the standard, by the standard. What I'm trying to tell you is the Saudis are a new standard. And so we had the gentleman who made this fight, Turkey Al Sheikh, His Excellency. He came on the show. He demanded to be on the show on Monday from his palace in Saudi Arabia. He says, I see a lot of jabronis on the internet, but you're the one that I need to talk to because you're number one. You got 13 trophies that back up that statement.
Shit. You could turn me into number one, and then this is a bad joke. I don't talk. I forget I said any of that.
And I have an offer on the table for Francis Ngannou to come back to Saudi Arabia. There it is. It's right there from my show. Did you miss that part? Did you miss that segment? You keep quoting other segments and misinterpreting them. Did you miss that one? That was the biggest one. That's the most powerful man in combat sports right now.
Just laid out everything that you just laid out. I think you're the first one to actually. I'm not turning on him. You're misleading, and you know it. You know there's not.
Where was I?
That because Francis had no professional boxing fights on his record, his boxing matches on his record, that they would not make this a title fight was going to be announced. And there was some belief that the reason why they announced it before the fight happened, which I criticized them for, was because the other sanctioning body, I believe it's the IBF, said, if you don't announce this fight by this day, we are going to strip
player, and they're setting the new rules. If there was a consistency and they were going each a week and a person could make a living and have a job to do, I don't know that I would disagree with you. It'd still be a really weird point.
Why do you keep
that you would attempt
hanging
to argue,
on to the standard?
Considering it 72 hours since it happened, it's not like you could possibly be an expert in it, but you are pretending to be. And it's kind of one of these really strange situations. So I'm not sure why you do it. I don't know if you're getting paid or you just feel like his nuts are better to lick than mine. I don't really know why.
That's a perfect time to pause. Carlos says, can we give Stipe flowers? Francis has lost. Sure, Francis lost before and after, but no one completely destroyed him like he did. Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, sure. Great win. But we could also point out that Francis had zero boxing at that point. Or, I'm sorry, wrestling. He went and learned how to wrestle. And then the next time that they fought, he shook Stipe off like he didn't exist and they decapitated him twice. Shot that he hit him with. And then when he was already unconscious, he dropped a power bomb, elbow, forearm on him, and he didn't wake up for 10 minutes. I think Stipe's awesome, but he doesn't get some kind of like introduction into this conversation because he beat Francis wrestling in 2018.
You're doing what you're doing. But there's nothing about that plan that was wise to do. The competition is where the focus should be. The fact that the pay-per-view bombed, we shouldn't even mention. This is a celebration of the fight that happened. And it goes two ways. By the way, when you find yourself, Ariel, every upset you've ever seen in any sport, could be swimming, boxing, every single upset has one thing in common. the athlete that lost, the favorite, found themselves in a situation that was harder than they thought it was going to be. And when Fury found himself in that spot, he regained his discipline. I mean, it was really an incredible thing for him to gut that out and march forward. And then talk about Francis. Not only has he got that power, right? Not only were his strikes so good. Did you see that one where he took an elbow, a straight up illegal, where Fury just tried to cheat, but it's like, 100%. I don't care if I get disqualified. It's better than whatever's happening here. Francis didn't even flinch.
Nothing.
I must have watched that thing 3 times and go, no, I must be seeing it wrong. It looks like he's hitting him, but Francis doesn't move.
That was one of the most obvious illegal, intentionally illegal elbows I've ever seen in boxing, if not the most obvious one in like a fight forward like that.
I kept rewinding because I couldn't believe how well Francis took that shot. So if you're talking about from a competitive standpoint, that's the focus of this. You're choosing to try to mislead with an overarching theme of bringing down the promoters, which is what keeps you afloat. I just wish that you wouldn't do that. It's misleading and it's not true.
How are you getting that?
It simply isn't true.
I said at the beginning of the show.
You even tried to make a comparison. As weird as this was, I let it go because you just said so many stupid things. But I even let it go where you try to say, and John Jones would have been hurt anyway and pulled off. John Jones got hurt a week ago for a fight that's 2 weeks from now, and the proposed match between Francis and John was 9 months ago. So it was just a weird thing.
I already completely, I already stated that as an argument. There's no reason to bring injuries into the conversation, either whether they're Francis injuries or John Jones. Just reviewing, quick question that I've been grappling with. Francis winning was so improbable from an outside perspective. So does this mean that Francis is a super genius athlete beyond everyone? I mean, no, it just means he has an irrational belief in himself, which is the basis of why this story is so inspiring, because he made decisions that were absolutely insane unless he had 100% belief that he would be successful at every single stage of this thing, or that his priority is not money, or if his priority is not money, which it clearly is not. It turns out that he's going to be financially, that he's going to win. As a matter of fact, that's the point I want to make right now, which is this. If Francis's genuine goal was money, he would not have made the decisions that he's made because the risk is too high. It's ludicrous, unless he's like a gambling addict. That's why the Vegas, metaphor was right. It's like, he's just going to go in there. He's like, all right, well, I've made 700,000, but I really, really want 5 million. So I'm going to go put 700,000 on number 35. You know what I mean? I know they won't touch this publicly, but Chael's track record of lying, legit crimes, cheating, and spinning narratives makes him okay. Well, I'm talking about this particular conversation, and I don't hear them disagreeing. The argument in my eyes is basically exclusively because of the setup that Ariel set up, which was to try to make Chael eat shit. And where are we at right now? 39. If you go back to here, when he stands up and he's like, here, like right here.
Here it comes.
This is the setup.
There it is.
Yeah.
Come on, Chael.
We shocked from the very beginning that Ariel
please apologize.
Ariel, make him eat
of the fight that happened. And it goes 2 ways, by the way. When you find yourself, Ariel, every upset you've ever seen in any sport, could be swimming, boxing, every single upset has one thing in common. The athlete that lost, the favorite, found themselves in a situation that was harder than they thought it was going to be. And when Fury found himself in that spot, he regained his discipline. I mean, it was really an incredible thing for him to gut that out and march forward. And then talk about Francis. Not only has he got that power, right? Not only were his strikes so good. Did you see that one where he took an elbow, a straight up illegal, where Fury just tried to cheat, but it's like, I don't care if I get disqualified. It's better than whatever's happening here. Francis didn't even flinch. I must have watched that thing 3 times and go, no, I must be seeing it wrong. It looks like he's hitting him, but Francis doesn't move. In fact, he comes forward. I kept rewinding because I couldn't believe how well Francis had been hurt anyway and pulled off. John Jones got hurt a week ago for a fight that's 2 weeks from now, and the proposed match between Francis and John was 9 months ago. So it was just a weird thing that you did for a reason that I don't really know why you did it.
Francis, you think would have been 100% for that?
Jake Paul and Diaz thing is not relevant.
I don't think Francis was 100% versus Fury, Ariel.
No,
we don't live on 100%.
He made the walk. He made the walk for that one. The point is,
that's my point. That's my point is he made the walk.
Yes,
don't try to steal like all of a sudden you're a tough guy.
He made the walk, and
My point is
This
he made the walk.
argument
Who
is
cares
an
if he did
argument.
100%?
I have thousands of hours of footage over the past 10 months of me saying Francis made the right call. You have thousands of hours of footage saying that he made the wrong call. And I
How could you possibly have known that he made the right call months and months ago? How could any, like, I mean, like, again, okay. I have a feeling this is where this is going to go, where they're going to talk about, you know, well, I assume that Chael's going to be like, you hate the UFC, would be my guess. I haven't seen this, but that's my guess. Lastly, do you think UFC could afford to buy PFL? If the PFL was for sale and they were going to value the company honestly, for sure they could.
believe ultimately what I'm taking away from this is that you can't say that you were wrong. You can't say that you were wrong. You can't admit for once
Errol, what I'm
that you were
taking away
wrong.
is I can't believe how dishonest you're being. I happen to know those
You keep
thousands of
saying
hours, and
this.
you spoke about it. When you said Francis did the right thing, you spoke purely from one perspective, which was business, which bombed. I spoke about
What
it
is
from a
the
competitive standpoint. I spoke about it from my respect of boxing that I found. I mean, this is the second time
So
in my
the
life.
10 million,
Second time.
the 10 million is a
The
bomb?
greatest in the world got their ass kicked by a guy that's never done it.
How is the 10
It's
million
an
a bomb?
interesting thing, Ariel.
How is the 10 million
And
a
for you to
bomb?
come in and then say, and there could be up to another 10 million in pay-per-view. Come on, partner, you made stuff
How is
up,
the
and I
10
called
million
you
a
out on
bomb?
it.
How is the 10 million a bomb? How is the 10? There's no UFC fighter on the
planet. You keep trying to assign it. You keep trying to assign it. You've got this real welfare mentality. I didn't know this side of you. How much did you make versus how much were you given are very different conversations. I'm trying to be responsible about this, Ariel. There's not a viable idea when the account goes this way. That's just the truth.
Oh, you think Francis
spoke
paid
about this constantly.
for the event?
Today's conversation should be about the competition. The competition is why Francis, to your point, is going to have another huge fight. The next payday, which is going to be big and will be made and earned, where somebody else will get a profit because of the competition. That's the spirit of today. Francis did a great job, and so did Fury. And we should have made it about competition instead of you trying to damage the bigger guys that you think somewhere around the way wronged you. And you know what, partner?
No.
They probably did. But for you to mislead your audience that was a good business move to let somebody else lose money, but it's what I got. Fair enough, partner.
Now I get
Play the lottery for your retirement.
So Chael. Now Chael's position is that Francis is taking, like, if you just look at it from the Francis point of view of how much Francis made, then he made, I think he's saying he made more money than he would have if he stayed at UFC, but he's saying it was a bad deal for the other side. So let's just I mean, I guess that actually is true. They're going to, for sure they're going to lose money. Like Saudis aren't going to make money on that fight. Okay, so actually, now I think I understand what Chael's point about multi-fight deals was, which was he took this money that's going to end up being a net negative for the Saudis. So it was a bad business decision for the Saudis. But the thing is that the Saudis, Francis is an ancillary part of that equation, because what they were really doing was using it as a promotions vehicle for the Fury and Usyk fight. The whole entire thing is probably all about getting Usyk into the ring after the fight to square off with Fury. That's probably honestly what the whole thing is about. The PFL deal, if Francis wouldn't have won this fight, how would the PFL deal ended up making sense? It makes sense now. So again, they're talking about two different things. They're not even disagreeing with each other. This whole thing is just about Ariel trying to get Chael to eat shit. Chael is not engaging in that conversation intentionally, obviously, because he's not going to fucking eat Ariel's shit. He's talking about business related to the overall event, and Ariel is talking strictly about Francis. And again, they're not even disagreeing with each other. They're not even disagreeing with each other, dude.
I get it.
By Ariel Helwani.
I get what you're doing. You don't have the balls to come out and say it, so I'll say it for you. What you're trying to say is that I have a grudge against the UFC and Dana White, and that's why I'm trying to spin this into a narrative that Francis won.
Well, he did win now. I think what he's saying is that that's what you were doing, which is what you were doing, which is exactly what I would do in his exact situation. I mean, if I were in Ariel's position, And I had exhausted all ways that I could like try to make my relationship healthy with Dana and the UFC, and they just hammered me. And I still had the biggest platform, you know, in straight up like, you know, whatever this like journalistic, where he can get access to all the fighters, he can tell stories, etc. And I had the opportunity to actually really hurt the organization and promote, you know, the heavyweight champion leaving the UFC, make it seem amazing. I mean, dude, I'm not in a position to judge people for being vindictive against people who have been vindictive against me. So, but if Ariel's gonna say that like did not drive any of the stuff that he said, like, come on, dude. Of course it did. And it would be unreasonable for him not to have felt that way. It'd also be unreasonable to deny that, because no one could have possibly known that when he got out of his UFC contract that he was going to get the Tyson Fury fight. Forget about how it is now. When he first left the UFC, before he signed the PFL, I mean, there was a big gap there before he did the PFL deal. Anybody was like, oh yeah, dude, he did a great job. I'm like, how could anyone have known how he was going to do? I mean, honestly, I probably should look at what, if I remember correctly, actually what Ariel said when Francis first left was, let's just wait and see how it shakes out. I think. I haven't looked that up. I don't remember. Ariel should just own it, though, and just be like, yeah, fuck Dana and fuck the UFC. I'm not saying that. I'm saying Ariel should own that, because that obviously is how he feels about the thing. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous to deny that.
Danced around it. You almost tried to say it.
You think I didn't make that clear?
Oh no, you didn't say it. You didn't say that. You didn't say that. You didn't quite say it.
You think I danced around it?
You danced around it.
I called you the F out on it. What do you mean I danced around?
You didn't have the guts.
I hit you in the face with
you didn't
like
have
a
the guts
frying
to say it, so I'll say it for you.
I don't have the guts
You didn't have the guts to say
I'm
it.
the one that
Rewind this
you
video
prick.
3 hours ago. Rewind this video 3 hours ago, and I was asked the first question of the day was, should other UFC fighters do this? And I said no. Not only will it not happen, I don't think it's a smart idea, and I don't think it's going to play out the way it did for Francis. Francis is an anomaly, and I even asked Markel that same question. So you think that I have this vendetta against UFC, that I'm going to try to unionize the fighters to go out? It would be incredibly dumb. They don't have they don't have the skills, they don't have the backing, there's not the demand, X, Y, and Z. And yet you are trying to spin this narrative so that you can get a couple of high fives on your YouTube channel later and say, you really stuck it to Ariel. You really exposed him. No, I know the score and I know exactly what happened. Francis Ngannou went out there and bet on himself and got one of the best deals that he could possibly get from the PFL. And then he got it while everyone was shitting on him, including yourself. And let's be honest, you have a grudge against him. You've talked about this. You guys almost came to blows in Dallas. You've talked about this on your YouTube channel. So there's a vendetta there too.
What? Who? Francis and Ariel almost got in a fight. I'm sorry, Francis and Chael almost got in a fight. I don't know anything about.
There's probably a little bit of a bad blood between you, and it's probably in your best interest to continue to shit on him, and I understand that. But what you are saying is incredibly, incredibly reckless, because you're ignoring the fact that $10 million is not a win for a guy in the UFC. No one's making 10.
Oh, so now it's 10 million, not 10 to 20. Because it is $10
million if you're not named Conor McGregor. And then the money he's about to make the next time around, the money he's about to make is going to laugh in the face of everyone in the UFC other than Conor, because he gets to play by a different set of rules. So you can dance around everything you want.
That's true. That's 100% accurate.
But next time, do me a favor, Chael. Don't fucking be don't be a fucking coward and dance around this shit. Say it to my face. Say it to my face like a man, because that's how I know you. Say it to my face and say, no, Ariel, you have a vendetta. You have a bias against the UFC, and that's why you're doing this.
I'll say it. You have a bias and vendetta against the UFC. This ended up working out because of how this played out with Francis. If you didn't have a bias and vendetta against the UFC, that would be some kind of personality defect in the opposite direction that I would not be able to make sense of. Of course you have a bias and vendetta against the UFC. If you didn't, that would be weird. That would be weird. Anybody in Ariel's position would have a vendetta against the UFC. I don't see how that would be any kind of gotcha or news to anyone. You know what I mean? Like, what? How would that be anything? Like, how is that new? How would that be news? If I looked up a compilation of Dana shitting on Ariel publicly, there's got to be like a 3-hour video somewhere of that. Of course he hates UFC and Dana. But also, of course, Francis now has the world by the balls. I don't even like. Anyway.
Say it to my face, grow a fucking pair. And I'll say to you, you have a bias and a vendetta against Francis, and you're a company man, and you work for ESPN, and you don't want to upset Big Bad Dana because he's done some really nice things to you over the years. So you have your bias, I have mine. The best part about this story is we know how it played out. Francis won. He didn't have to pay a penny. He didn't have to lose a dime. He got 10 to 20 million. Oh, I can't wait for those numbers to come out. And then he's about to get even more come March whenever he fights again in the kingdom, backed by a guy who doesn't care if he loses.
Why did Chael and Francis almost get in a fight? I mean, I like fucking Chael in basically every fight on earth. That one's kind of scary, though.
Another 100 million.
The spirit of today was for us to celebrate the competitiveness of Francis Ngannou, which is what I came here to do. If you want to talk the business side, it's very simple. It lost money. The pay-per-view. You're done right there. You stop right there. If your true intent, Ariel, with your big balls and all your courage, was to celebrate the 10 million that he got, which is all that he got, you would have done that 3 months ago when it was announced.
I did. I'll send you the clip.
Of today, Ariel, and the only reason your audience is still watching.
You're lying. You're lying. You're lying, Chael. I did. I did it on July 11th.
To do
You're a liar.
With the competitiveness.
Okay,
Chael. The only reason you're talking about a fight. Ariel, you keep cutting me off.
Because you're lying.
I don't really
Chael, you're lying. You are lying.
Oh, wow. I didn't know they got this mad, dude.
About what?
I
You
did
dumb
celebrate.
Son, I would strangle you if I was there. You come and talk to me mouthy like this.
What? Dude, I didn't know that we were. I swear to you, I had no idea how that this happened.
Do it. Do it.
Ariel,
This is like a scene out of your movie, Low Job Diamonds.
Because I'm saying you didn't do something.
I
if
did
it turned out you did, by the way, it would make me wrong. It would mean that your buddies got it wrong. It wouldn't make it a lie.
Saying it was
and you sure didn't invite me over here.
You're saying,
I sure was on with you 3 months ago. I've been on with you since this fight was signed, and you never celebrated it. You never talked about the money. And it was so rude what you've done to Francis here today, where you pretend to be his friend, talks about behind someone's back. I'm going to be a coward behind your back, but I almost come to blows with Francis face to face. Do you think those two stories go together, you little weasel?
What are you talking about? You've talked about it on your YouTube channel.
Something else about it, Ariel.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is about the celebration of the competition that he had. And when you talk about it, it will parlay you to your next fight. These are wonderful things that I agree with you and that we can have a meaningful conversation on. But this is you taking things back. And to come and ask me when something is done, literally whether this happened or not, of course it did. We're stating facts. I interpret that for me to educate people about the standard of the industry and what could be changed to make it better next time. It's a very rare event. It's a very rare sporting event in my lifetime where it's bigger after the fact.
That's why we could
fact. Okay, now I have Now I have a lot more information about the background of this. I had no idea that Chael had it like a real actual negative interaction with Francis, which reframes this entire thing. And I'm going to give you guys let me let them just play this out, and then I'm going to tell you what I think about this entire thing.
To talk about it. That's why I'm asking you about the benefit of hindsight.
The timeline and how it worked. The fact that it was a financial loss while being the biggest and most celebrated after the fact is something that we can learn from. Those are relevant facts that your audience would want to know. They would want to know why today them personally are more excited about this than they were Saturday morning, the day of the fight. Those are interesting things.
Retrospect.
You chose this to use a way to try to hurt the man. It was weird. I don't know why you did it, Ariel. I don't know why you did it.
I literally said, now that we have the benefit of hindsight and looking back in retrospect.
Guys, hang on. Someone who just said that it's a setup. It was a setup. You really think that? You think that like this so didn't matter that Chael came on and was in our chat because this was like totally set up and he was just like, oh, great. They're all like 100% not. Chael came in and was chatting to us about this because like this for sure was real. Here, let me oh, you were kidding. Okay. He was kidding. Let me just say this really quick. So now that I know that they had that interaction, that Chael and Francis had a genuine negative interaction like that, that makes this entire thing super like shit on Ariel's part, dude. Like up until now, I was just like, look, they're just kind of talking past each other. Like neither of them is disagreeing with the other one, you know? Like they're saying two different things. Ariel is talking about, did he make the right decision? And Chael is like, I'm not even talking about that. I'm saying celebrate the win, yada, yada. You know, like they're not disagreeing with each other. Now that I know that Chael and like Francis had an actual real problem. Well, dude, Ariel's supposed to be Chael's friend. He knows that. And he brought him on the show to try to make him eat shit in front of the entire world, knowing Francis is going to see it. Like he's trying, like, you know what I mean? Like that changes fucking everything. I'm at hour number 2. Okay. Clearly, this is a new take as of this moment. And like at the end of the second hour, I have a fully formed opinion on this, which is Ariel's supposed to be Chael's fucking friend. And he knew that Chael had like a real legit beef with Francis that apparently was like, you know, like at least, I mean, anytime any two people have beef, it feels well-founded on their side. And he brought him on the biggest show in MMA and tried to make him eat shit on what he said about Francis. That's super fucked up.
Can you concede
Ariel,
that
you
this
know
worked
that's
out?
not what Ariel, you know that wasn't your point, or we would just do that now. We would do that all day. What fun would that be to listen to?
Because now we know how the story plays out.
Ariel, it was filmed and put around the world.
Now he knows how the story plays out. Now he knows how the story plays out.
Things for that reason. You had a different message.
Hold on. My dude, I'm friends with Chael and Francis's team, and I did not know that. What?
You had a different message. And I do resent that you tried to act like I wouldn't say it to your face. You motion, come on over here. That's chicken stuff. I don't do that. I don't do that kind of stuff to you.
You're literally threatening me. You're saying you're going to strangle me, Chael, my own friend.
You called me a liar, Ariel. You called me a liar, which in a worst case, I could be wrong.
Wow.
If I did something and I didn't have an intent, I could be right. You don't give me your friend the benefit of that.
Listen.
You don't give me the benefit that I could have been wrong. You came on and said that it's been reported.
I was a fence sitter until I had all of the information. Clearly not anymore.
That he made 10 to
they weren't disagreeing with each other. Now it's the actual setup of the interview that is fucked up.
20 million was your opening line, which was a lie. So I told you, bring it up. I don't care if it's a thread by an anonymous source on the underground forum. I told you I would accept it, but I told you it wasn't out there and you didn't actually read it and you didn't do it. You had to cop to the lie that you were the one that said it.
Yeah.
10 to 20 million is 100% difference. It's not a prediction.
That's true.
Well, I don't know what the numbers are. That's why I asked you. We could go back. How do I know?
You know the paper.
How do I know? I don't work for the worldwide leader. I don't work for them.
Man.
I don't have an inside source. And by the way,
you're a weirdo.
By the way, you are a liar because
and
you
a dishonest one, which I didn't know.
You tweeted on Saturday that you were at the event, and we just found out you weren't at the event. Was that not a lie, or
did I say that to you today?
No,
did I say those words
there's a habit of lying.
And how are you bringing it in?
Because you tweeted that.
How are you bringing it in?
So there's a habit.
Adam,
there's a habit.
But how
there's
would you bring that in? We're having a debate about today. What we said. I didn't say these things to you today.
What are you talking about?
Why would you bring that? Should I bring up things that I know about you outside of the interview?
No,
is that what we should do to figure out who the weasel is versus who the tough guy is? Should we start doing that to each other?
I didn't bring up a single thing that you haven't said publicly. Why don't we just call it?
Why don't we? This is the road to nowhere. There was two things to observe. There was a competitiveness. It was amazing.
It was.
There was a business life that wasn't viable. That's the truth. One wasn't viable and one was surprisingly competitive. I came here to celebrate the good, not only with Francis, but with Tyson. You came here to tell a message to Dana White, which missed, like it always. I gotta go. I hate hanging up. That's what punks do. But I gotta go, man. You're disgusting.
That's a weasel move.
And you're weak, Ariel. You're disgusting and weak.
I'll stand here. You're trying to leave. You're trying to leave, and you keep insulting me. You keep insulting. Bring on the insults. Bring on the insults.
And then you call me the liar.
Some friend. You did lie.
You opened this by saying that it did 10 to 20 million as reported. You could have said, I'm guessing, I think, but you didn't. You lied. This is your opening line. I'm not going back, Ariel, like you tried to do with things out of a different place that nobody here as your audience, our jury can see. I went back to your first line. Your opening line to me, you lied.
Oh,
I called you out. You got caught lying. You said it did 10 to 20, and you said it was reported.
Yes, by me. By me. By me. By me.
And your little weasel.
Me.
Goodbye, Ariel.
Keep insulting. Yeah, there he is. What a freaking bitch move that is.
All right. Well, Yeah. So my take is they never disagreed with each other in the points that they were making. So you can only go back to the entire setup was for Ariel to try to make Chael eat shit in public, where he would have to, I don't know, like, I mean, I don't know, dude. If you almost got to fight with a guy, it's a fucking pretty fucked up move to try to make him publicly eat shit about that on your show. But yeah. I mean, if we're talking for real about everything that they're talking about, it's pretty straightforward. What Francis did was a 1 in a billion chance of working out. It did. So Francis for sure won. He is in a position to make fortunes of money. Every decision that he made ended up being the right ones. If someone tried to duplicate them, the likelihood they would have success like he did is almost impossible. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I like, if Ariel knew that Chael had a problem with Francis, why would he bring him on and try to make him eat shit about it on his show if they're friends? You know what I mean? Weird. Anywho, so see, this is the thing though, dude. Like, Chael's accompaniment, like, I think we can, like, if Chael really almost got a fight with Francis, then you can reframe how you've taken his opinions since then. You know what I mean? All right. My head hurts. I've been doing this for 2 hours. I'm going to go to jiu-jitsu, but I love you guys and thanks for hanging out. Peace.